Welcome to the JV Media Digital Drop-In free webinar. I'm so excited to see everyone this month because, like all of you, I have been at home. So today we're going to talk about how to use Instagram stories effectively as a brand and how to have fun doing it. So again, Jacqueline, I see that you added a question to the Q&A. Just so everybody knows, throughout the call, you can add to the Q&A or you can type your questions into the chat. Either way, I will see them. We are going to talk a tiny bit about some additional Instagram features, so I'm going to go ahead and start by answering Jacqueline's question in the first part of the call. Do you see value in having an IGTV, or are stories more useful and or engaging? So that's actually how we're going to start the call today, is to talk about Instagram and some of the different features that it offers and why stories are so valuable. So for those of you who maybe are new and don't know me, I'm Sarah Benoit. I'm the co-founder and lead instructor of the JV Media Institute, and I have been doing SEO, social media, web design and development, and online advertising since 2003. So I'm headed towards my 20-year mark in my career, and one of my favorite things to work on is definitely Instagram strategy. So there's, like I said, a few tools in Instagram that we want to pay attention to, even though we're going to talk mainly about stories today. We don't have time to go over just Instagram in general, but there's kind of two pieces that I think are really valuable for Instagram. One is there's some basic posting tools. So some of you were asking what's the difference between a story and an Instagram post. It's basically that they're two different sections of Instagram. And IGTV is also a third section of Instagram where content is being produced. So if you are using regular posting on Instagram, there's three tools I'm going to recommend: Boomerang, Hyperlapse, and Layout. These are three different apps that you can add to your phone, and it will allow you in your regular Instagram newsfeed to create short repeating videos, to create time-lapse videos, and to create collage layouts of different photos that you take. You'll still be able to use the filters and all the other bells and whistles that are in there. But I think if you're doing Instagram and you're not using these systems, I would definitely add these apps and learn how to use them because they can really enhance the visuals. So if you want to basically take a look at what you've got on your own phone, because again, Instagram is an app that you have to use on your phone or your tablet. You're going to take out your phone, go to Instagram, and then just act as if you're going to post, right, a picture. That means click that little plus sign in the bottom to open up the camera. And from there, you can usually see things like the Boomerang logo, the Layout logo, or the Hyperlapse logo. So these little logos appear once you've added those apps. So if you don't have those options, you may want to go ahead and add those. The next thing that I wanted to talk about relates to the question, what value does IGTV have over stories? So IGTV, like I said, has become its own separate area. It's very much similar to how Facebook has really started to do Facebook Watch, right? So now I can click on the Facebook Watch icon and start just going through shows and videos and different things that I want to pay attention to. Instagram or IGTV is pretty much the same thing. There's even a separate app. So if you just want to be able to access IGTV and watch things there without having to engage with the other parts of Instagram, you can get a separate app for that. The biggest positive for IGTV is essentially that you can do long form video content in IGTV. So when you post on Instagram, you can only do a minute of video. It's very short. When you are in stories, you can do live stream and all sorts of short video types of content. But if you wanted to create kind of a longer video series, more pre-recorded videos that were like shows, any type of longer form content is going to be better done on IGTV. And IGTV is integrating with the main news feed of Instagram quite a bit. So there are different ways that people will be able to engage with the video content you create with IGTV in other parts of Instagram. And we're seeing that actually shift this year. But the goal really with IGTV is to create longer form video content, regular series of content, and hopefully to engage your current network of followers. So when they go into IGTV, if they're already following your Instagram page, then they will potentially see some of your IGT content more frequently. We're going to talk about stories and what the value is for using stories instead, but I think stories are just completely different than IGTV because they really are shorter. They're supposed to be really multimedia, and usually you're supposed to be thinking about how to engage people in the moment, get them into conversations, get them into quizzes or polls, or engaging in some way, whereas IGTV is a little bit more of really, like I said, creating video series or content that you want to use. And thanks for that comment, Laura. I appreciate it. And then Lori, I see, is there a length limit and are there preferred settings for creating video for easier upload? So again, that's something that you can just Google depending on what type of video you're creating. So whether it's video for the feed, video for stories, video for IGTV, all of these things have different length limits. And so if you just Googled Instagram for business, you'd be able to learn pretty much all the different kind of just length pieces that are involved in the different parts of Instagram. Like I said, the feed is mostly about a minute. You know, if you live stream inside of stories, then you can live stream multiple stories so that it's a longer broadcast. If you do other types of video, it depends on what you're doing. So like a boomerang is just a few seconds of a repeating video. A super zoom, you kind of hold down the button to create the video of a certain length, but it's usually not going to be more than a minute or something like that inside of stories. Whereas IGTV would give you, like I said, the ability to create much longer form video. So there are story settings inside of Instagram. IGTV has settings associated with it. If you're not familiar with your Instagram settings on your Instagram business page, that's something I would start clicking on and learning about because there will be different types of settings that you can add there. But typically the length is just dictated by which tool you're using. As far as creating videos, the one thing I will say is typically MP4s are the standard. So if you're creating videos outside of the Instagram app and then adding them to Instagram, then essentially you really want to work with that MP4. And so Laura, I see you missed something along the way. Where do you have quizzes and polls on IGTV? I'm a bit confused. All right, so you guys are asking questions before I even get into the presentation. So that's what we're going to talk about right now is all the different features of stories and how it works. IGTV does not have quizzes and polls. That is stories only. IGTV is really, like I said, just a place to broadcast series of videos or different long form videos, very much like YouTube. And I see a couple other questions and then we're going to have to get started. If you're posting videos on your blog or website, can you or should you use the same videos on IGTV? I'm worried about production or time and cost. So yes, if the videos are something that you think are going to be exciting for your Instagram audience, I say definitely repurpose them and just add them to IGTV. Again, you might want to check the specs to make sure you have the right file format, if it's an MP4 and it's the right length. But certainly if you think that your audience will enjoy that, you can do that. And then Jenna, I see you're just commenting on how we will send a recording of this to everyone. Great, and just so you guys know, if we could chat in the chat and not go back and forth in the Q&A, that'd be helpful, just because I want to keep the Q&A for questions and answers. And then Mickey, I see your comment here. How do I link to another account or web page in an Instagram story? Do I need to have a business account? If so, how do I qualify for that? So yes, we're going to talk about all of this. That's what the whole presentation is about. I will say I would suggest that you get an Instagram business account. You can actually switch from a personal to a business inside of your settings. And you can Google that. How do I switch to an Instagram business account? You can always tag somebody with a sticker in any Instagram story regardless. So when you want to mention another account, you have to use the @ symbol and tag them, and we'll talk about how that sticker works. But I definitely would encourage you, if you're doing this for business purposes, that you switch over to an Instagram business account. So like I said, if you want to explore more about IGTV, you can click on this link when you get a copy of this slide deck. And again, for those of you who maybe are new to digital drop-ins, as Genna posted, we will be sending out recordings as well as the slide deck to everyone who registered as usual. So you don't have to try to remember all of this. You can go back and dig into these links down the road. But again, if you want to see what IGTV is and you're new to it, take out your phone, go to your Instagram app, and find IGTV under the Explore area. So you can basically click that little magnifying glass, and you'll be able to have an area where you can click on IGTV and watch different things. And then I see here we've got some questions going on. Hyperlapse option, when I click to add, do I need to load that on my IG? We'll get there, Jen. And yeah, we'll go ahead and I'll definitely talk about that as we go forward, because we're going to cover all the features today. So Instagram stories. Again, you'll have this slide deck, so you can dig into a lot of the details. There's no way to know everything about Instagram stories. So I want to repeat that. There's no way for anyone, not me, not anyone in this call, to know every single thing that Instagram stories is capable of. That's why I think it's so much fun, because essentially it's changing all the time, and there are new things being added to it every single day and every single week. So what you have to do with Instagram stories is start to really have fun with it and play with it and learn how it works. So again, the first thing I would suggest if you're new is that you start watching Instagram stories, right? So you can see here in this photo on the left, we've got these little circles at the top. When you first log into Instagram, if you see those circles, those are other people's stories, and I suggest you start watching them. The basics of stories are, it's a separate feature where you can post videos and photos, and they have all sorts of different cool graphics tools inside, and then they vanish after 24 hours. The photos and videos that you're sharing in your Instagram story, once that 24 hours has elapsed, they can't be watched anymore. They literally disappear. So this is why stories is separate than your actual posts in your newsfeed, which will be around for some time. The stories are really about engaging people in the moment, asking them questions, getting them into a conversational tone, sharing information with them that they need. So it's about really creating things that are direct, simple, engaging, and move pretty quick. Now, we are going to talk about how you can archive them and highlight them. Sometimes if you think your story is great, you can add it to your newsfeed. But in general, the stories were created to be this more interactive and engaging place. And I see that question, but we're going to get there in just a minute. So the other thing is that content shared to stories doesn't actually really show on your profile unless, like I said, you actually highlight them, post them, or feature them on your account in some way. So most people, when they click to look at your actual Instagram account, they're not going to see your stories there unless you've highlighted them. The only place they're going to see their stories is when they log into their own Instagram, all the pages they follow. If there's stories that have been posted recently, they'll show up at the top. So stories, like I said, are a separate part of Instagram that is really about more, exciting engagement with people and connecting more frequently with them. So there's a few different ways that you can get to Instagram stories. If you're on your newsfeed, you can actually just swipe right. And when you swipe right, you should see your camera open. Now, I'm not on every single device, so I can't guarantee every single device is exactly the same, but I know the vast majority of them, that swiping right when you're looking at your newsfeed opens up the stories camera and allows you to create a story. Also, when you're in the feed, you may see a camera icon in the upper left. And if you click on that camera icon, it should again open up a separate camera where you can create a story. So again, when you're creating stories, a few things are going to happen. One, a lot of times they're going to ask you if you want to highlight it. That means you want to feature this story on your profile itself, on your account. Your stories are often archived, which means essentially, yes, you will be able to see the insights or the analytics for your stories after the fact. Now, keep in mind, if you have an Instagram business page and you're using the insights, you really want to be looking at it on a weekly basis and taking some notes and keeping track of what's working. Because unless you have a third-party tool that's actually going to database all that tracking somewhere else, you have time limits on how much data you can see in Instagram. So it's not like Facebook and how we can go to our desktop and look at data from months and months and months ago. On Instagram, you really want to schedule so that you're looking at your content maybe on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis and taking note of which content was the most popular, which posts, which stories, which ads, how much reach and engagement did they get, what types of engagement, was it hearts, was it comments, was it both? So even though, yes, you can see your stories, analytics, and data after the fact, remember, because we're working on a smaller screen, they don't database it for months at a time. So you might want to have some benchmarks that you're looking at on a bi-weekly, monthly basis, maybe at the least. And then, like I said, on a lot of the apps, depending on which phone or tablet you're using, when you create a story, it'll sometimes ask you, do you want to add this to your feed as well, or even instead? And so if you think the content is good enough and should be in your feed, and you want it to be more evergreen and stick around for a longer time, you can do that. But the biggest difference between stories and regular posts is that essentially stories are typically going to be disappearing. They're not something that you're going to have on your Instagram account later. Now, the positive is a lot of times when you're creating these things on your phone or your tablet, it'll also give you the option to save it to your phone or your tablet. So a lot of times I end up with copies of a lot of the content I've created for stories. And so I can save them for later if I want to go back over how they looked or what I did, things like that. I have the chance to do so. So again, if you want to see what's up with stories, you can take out your phone right now. You can go to Instagram, and when you click on your Instagram app and it opens up, you may see some circles at the top of your feed. If you click on those circles, you'll end up watching a story. And so hopefully, Heather, I'm hoping that answered your questions. So yes, you will see the analytics after stories have vanished. But again, like I said, you may want to have for Instagram, if you're not going to pay a third-party tool to sort of pull the tracking in and put it somewhere that you can look at it in the future, then you may want to have a way to add some things to a document on a regular basis. For my nonprofits, since we have a smaller budget, a lot of times, once or twice a month, I look at our Instagram and I take screenshots on my phone of the different posts that I thought performed the best. And I chart out how many followers we have, some of these key things that we're looking at. That just makes it easier for me to share it with the nonprofit board, because a lot of times, again, we're working on a phone with a small screen, all the stats are inside of there. It's a little hard to share it with people if you're not kind of clear on what your benchmarks are, what it is that you want to look at on a regular basis, and then adding it to a spreadsheet or a document. So Instagram stories, I just wanted you all to understand a little bit about why this style of content is so popular. Basically between 2016 and 2019, we saw just Instagram stories cross over the 500 million person mark per day. So one of the positives of having stories disappear is that people feel more urgent about having to watch them and engage with them and respond to them, right? Because they know it's not going to be in your feed if they want to go back and look at it tomorrow potentially. So we see engagement goes up. And we also see that stories are pretty popular with the younger markets, right? So younger folks, especially who are using Snapchat and things like that, we're already used to this style of things. And then Heather, I see your question here about sharing suggestions for software to catalog insights longer term. Yeah, I'm going to include my contact information in this slide deck. So if you could just email me, I'm glad to share with you some of the systems that I know that you can get that are more like paid third-party systems rather than just doing it yourself. But feel free to email me and I can share those with you. But also 68% of people become more interested in a brand or product after they see it in a story. So again, we see the younger markets, let's say people 40 and under, are actually pretty excited and engaged with this style of content. It was made popular by Snapchat. Of course, Facebook and Instagram have continued that, and WhatsApp as well has featured something similar. And so all of these different systems, WhatsApp and Snapchat especially being popular with people that are 35 and under, we really see that this style of content is something people are really drawn to. There's also, some level of content fatigue when it comes to news feeds for a lot of people. So especially now that we're all home and people are on social media quite a bit, I think it's even more so that the news feed can become cumbersome, that there can be like a lot of information in there to sort through. So sometimes stories are a little easier because you can just swipe through them. You can skip them very easily if you don't want to watch something. So you have a few different options there. But we're seeing that, like I said, over a year ago, over 500 million people a day were interacting with this feature on Instagram. Instagram in general is doing really well for businesses in a lot of ways, despite the fact that it's not as easy to get people to click to your website from Instagram. Most of Instagram is not really created for people to be clicking away and going somewhere else. A lot of it is created to keep people inside of the app. But its ability to create engagement and to create brand recognition is still driving a great deal of business. So you can see 60% of people on Instagram say they discover new products there. 200 or over 200 million Instagrammers visit a business profile at least once a day. 80% of people have increased time spent watching video. So the multimedia aspect, especially of stories and the advent of IGTV, has really increased the video viewing on the platform. And then 1/3 or over 30% of the most viewed stories on Instagram are from actual businesses. Right? So businesses are really driving a lot of engagement on the system. And someone was asking earlier about switching to a business account. I feel business accounts on Instagram are really valuable because they provide tracking, they provide contact information that you can include in your profile, they give you access to all the advertising systems inside of your Instagram app. So there's a lot of positives to using that tool to promote yourself. And here's just an example of a business page, how you can add your phone number, your email, or your directions to your Instagram business account. So like I said, you get the tracking, you get metrics on your stories and your advertising, and all of that stuff. So you can definitely utilize those tools more for promotion, which I think is really positive. So the number of Instagram feed posts per week has actually been going down for the last 4 years. So basically they're projecting for this year, we're going to see it drop again. And this is because people are interacting more in the stories area and less in the news feed. Now, this isn't a huge drop, right? It's ongoing 3.3 to 2.3. So we're not saying people are leaving the feed, but we are saying that as stories have been out there longer and longer over the last few years, more and more people are engaging with that style of content, learning things, getting different discounts and deals there, and really, like I said, engaging in different things. Also, people who are surveyed say that 83% of them say Instagram is helping them discover new products and services. 81% say it's helping them research products and services, and 80% decide whether to buy a product or service once they have kind of seen what that brand or company or organization is doing. So again, Instagram in general is really helping businesses make deeper connections with people, and I think do stronger storytelling, which again is part of the fun of being involved in this. And it's also really, I think, giving brands the chance to come up with more creative ways to share their values, their products, their services, what they're about, their vision, their mission, and all of that. And then overall, story style content, like I said, is becoming more and more popular. So Facebook and Facebook Messenger, there's over 500 million people using stories feature. Same with Instagram, same with WhatsApp. And then Snapchat, of course, is a smaller group, but we always kind of pay attention to them because they were the ones who originally created this style of content. So what we're seeing, like I said, in the bigger picture of social media is that people are moving away from feeds and they're moving towards story style content. both the people that are on the platforms and the businesses. We're all sort of using this more engaging way of communicating. So let's talk about Instagram Stories tools. And like I said, none of us can ever know all of these tools. I'm going to talk about the ones that I double checked last night to make sure are still there, but they are literally changing every week. And that's because not only is Instagram creating new tools for Instagram Stories, but actual people using the platform, or what we call creators, can also create different types of filters and stickers and things that we want to use in the system. So the most baseline thing that we have inside of Instagram Stories are a bunch of photo and video tools for taking and creating these content pieces that will disappear in 24 hours. So it can be something as simple as what we call type, which is just choosing a color background, some fonts, writing some text. You can do all sorts of kind of, again, stickers and added things like locations and other stuff that you want to add to that. But in the very baseline, you can at least create just a visual graphic with color and text. Then you have a number of video tools like live streaming, boomerangs, super zoom, rewind, stop motion, and hands-free. So all of those are various video tools. You can see exactly what they are. Boomerang is a short repeating video. Super zoom zooms in on something. It has kind of different effects to it that make it pulse in. You can have music. It has different colors and things that happen. Rewind is when you take a video and it automatically turns it into playing backwards. So the video plays in reverse. Stop motion essentially helps you make an animated GIF or GIF if you prefer. Hands-free is great for artists and crafters or musicians, people who want to put their phone or their tablet on a tripod and then do a video through Instagram Stories where they're playing their song or they're making a pot or they're painting. That gives you some freedom to not have to hold down the record button when you're creating video. And then of course, normal is just where you take a photo and then you add some things to it in Stories. No, Stephanie, these are not separate apps. These are built into Instagram Stories. It's actually the tools that exist inside of it. And we're about to look at an example of this so you can get a visual. So when I, like I said, swipe right or click the camera, it opens up where I would take my actual story picture or photo or picture or video and then edit it. So here you can see on the bottom, when you swipe it open, it's a different camera than what you're used to when you're taking a photo or a video for your feed. It's a completely separate camera that opens up. And here you can see on the left, I have super zoom, boomerang, normal, rewind, hands-free. I can actually scroll with my thumb left to right and choose which thing I want to use. Once I choose the tool, it opens up all these different settings. So I can turn the camera around so it faces me. I can turn on the flash. I can click here and get a number of different musical settings. You see that little musical note? This is the music that it's going to add, right? And so as I flip through the tools, I actually get a bunch of other tools inside of the tools that I might want to play with. And then when I want to create whatever piece of content, I'm either going to just click to take the photo, or I might be holding the button down to record the video if I want. So right now, this is a super zoom. It's zooming in on this squirrel as he turns to face the camera. And the longer that you hold down the button, the longer the video is going to be. And then you'll see here in the upper right, you still have the ability to add music, to add text, and to add stickers, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But that first round of tools is just the different video and photo kind of taking tools inside the camera. Laura, I see your question. Is there a way to get Instagram Story to automatically post to Facebook? Yes, if you have connected your business Instagram page to your Facebook business page, then you should have the option when you go to post the story to also send it to your Facebook stories. So that's all just, it's like a little setting that you toggle on and you should see it as you're actually posting your story. And then Kara, more about the music. So the music is chosen by Instagram. It's what they make available. That's the options, right? So unless you're a musician videoing yourself, playing your own original music. If you want to just add different, kind of popular tunes and things like that, you have to just go with whatever Instagram is offering. Let me see if there's one more in here. So you're saying you didn't see that option yet? Well, it's not in every single thing. So I know usually it's in Super Zoom and maybe a couple other things. But again, I'm trying to be as accurate as possible, but they change around where they're offering that stuff. But sometimes you'll see in a story that there's like music playing. So I would just look for some sort of, like you see that option right there with the musical notes. I would just look to that. And I would play around with the different tools because not every tool has anything to do with music. So it's not like music is always an option. It's only going to be an option sometimes. The other things that you'll see is that you can create your own story filters, and there's lots of other people out there creating story filters. So again, that's where we get into creators. That can be brands or individuals. They can create different types of filters, and they can make them available for people to try. So if you know that there is a company or an artist that's created a filter, you can search for them, and usually Instagram, when you look at their profile, will tell you that they have filters that they're making available to the public. You can also, if you see your friends using different types of filters in stories, there may be an option where there's a little button that says try it. And then there's also an effects gallery that you can access inside of stories. And essentially, that will allow you, again, to see the different types of filters that people are creating, and to potentially down the road, if you want, consider creating one yourself. And then Hannelore, I see you here. If you go to stickers, it will have an option for music. You can click that and search for a song you want to play in your story. So yeah, we haven't gotten to stickers yet, but that's another option that's different than what I was just talking about, which is basically looking at the tools and the different music that comes with some of those. But yeah, we're going to talk about the stickers in just 1 second. So again, just to give you an example or a visual on how this can look in your system, again, when you're creating a story and you choose those different tools across the bottom, like super zoom, normal, type, rewind, all of those, you'll also see sometimes that it opens up these type of filters. And so this is where you can have lights around your head, you can look like a fairy, you can look like a bunny rabbit. These are the types of things that we're talking about, where people create all these different styles of filters. And then again, when you find one that you like, or you're looking for a creator, you can see you have a try it and you have a save option. You can share it with your friends as well. So as you sort of dig into the filters, which again are all throughout the system in different places, you can start to understand how you might find some that you like and you want to reuse them over and over. So again, this is just another example of filters that you can find where you're able to create different effects on your images. So now we've talked about the first two things, tools that come inside of stories to create video and imagery. Then we've got filters, which we find associated with all sorts of different tools, which is how we kind of add effects to different things, whether it's a photo or video of some kind. And then what we've got for all of this is the stickers. And you can see if you look up here, most of the time when you're creating stories, you have this little option, right? This is the stickers icon. This is for writing text, right? And this is for actually choosing some of these interactive features. So this is where we get everything that people were asking about earlier, right? So you can add the time, you can add the temperature, you can search for an animated GIF or GIF and add it to the story. So actually put it on top of the actual image or video that you already created. You can mention other people. So this is where you want to use the @ symbol to tag them, right? So here you can see is my sticker for @mention. I would choose that sticker, and then I have to know the handle of the person that I want to mention, and I have to just make sure I use their name. So Melissa, you're saying you don't see any of those things on yours. So when you create a story, do you not ever see the sticker icon? Because I've never seen anybody who doesn't have the sticker icon. So did you see where that was? And let me see if I have a closer version of it so we can see it. So it's like this little guy right here. right? It's sort of like a little square, rounded kind of face looking thing. That's usually how you click to add your stickers. You have to create your whole content piece before you add the stickers typically. So like I have to take the photo or I have to take the video, and then I usually have that stickers option in the upper right. So I don't know if that's helpful, but I feel like if you're not seeing that, we'd have to talk about that at a different time, because literally every time I create stories, like I said, I swipe right or I click the camera, it opens up the camera, I take the photo or I add the video or I create the video, and then literally I have the option to put the text or the stickers on top of it at that point. Yeah, you have to, you can't do anything with this tool if you haven't created the story. Yeah. And then you have one more biz account, and you notice some sticker options are available on one account that aren't on the other. Is there a way to customize or add options? Again, so it's unfortunate because I can't compare that like apples to apples. Were you creating the exact same type of story on both accounts, right? So was it like you created a super zoom on one and on the other, and there were different options? The only customization or adding of options is really saving things to the account. So I guess somebody could have saved some things, but that shouldn't remove any sticker options. But yeah, again, that's really specific. It might be something we'd have to talk about more privately. So specifically, there's an option to add another image from my photos on one account, but not on the other. Yeah, Lori, I'm so sorry. We'd have to dig into that in more detail because I'm not really sure what you're referring to. You can use my email and take a screenshot and send it to me, and I might be able to figure out more specifically what's going on with that. But yeah, I don't really know what you're referring to, so it's hard for me to troubleshoot that. But again, getting back into stickers, mentioning other people is really valuable. So using that @ symbol is really important, especially if you want to mention other accounts, other brands, other people. The stickers is also where you have, and you see here, the polls. So you can customize a poll, you can put in specific question, customize the answers, and then invite your followers to vote on things. You have location options. So that is where, you know, you can actually say that you're sitting in a physical location or reference a business by referencing their brick and mortar location. You also have a questions area. So you can ask your audience a question and then have the responses sent to you in direct messages. So questions are another sticker that companies like to buy or use, especially if they're trying to drive people to actually engage with them more one-on-one in their inbox. And then of course we've got even more. So countdowns, that's how you can do a countdown to the release of a product or a song or an event or something like that. You've got the chat, so you can start conversations with a group of friends right from your story. This is where you see the music option, so you can click on music and you can choose from whatever Instagram offers there to add it. You can create quizzes, again, that are customized, that have multiple choice options for people to choose. You can use hashtags by using the hashtag sticker, and you can even use the emoji slider. So this is where if you want to get more creative with your questions, you can ask people to sort of drag and drop like their level of emotion about something to figure out how they feel. So even though a lot of these are very similar as far as engagement is concerned, it's about getting creative with your audience and, you know, trying to figure out what kind of things they want to talk about, what kind of questions they need answered, what stuff matters to them, or maybe even have fun. I've seen people, you know, like coaches and authors and musicians do things where they poll about whether or not they should cut their hair or whether or not they should get a tattoo or things like that. So depending on whether or not you're a brand, if it's a larger business and what industry you're in, or maybe you're a small sole proprietor and you're one person promoting yourself, you have a lot of flexibility here to really reflect your personality, your brand's values, like I said, your mission and vision, and sort of the flavor of who you really are. So Christine, I see this question. If I manually tag a business in my stories text, will it tag them, or do I have to use the mentioned sticker option? So as far as I understand, when you're actually typing text, if you use the @ symbol, it does and again, I wouldn't say it's true of every story, but at least some of the story features when I create them, I can just use that @ symbol and tag. But the sticker sort of makes it stand out more, if that makes sense. And it does have that sort of white piece with the colors. So I think sometimes people choose the sticker because it's going to lay over top of the actual image or video better. And then same question for hashtags. Do they work if simply typed in as text, or do you have to use the hashtag sticker? So I'm pretty sure, like I said, I can't guarantee every single tool is going to support this, but I feel like most of the tools, yes. If I put the number sign and actually create a hashtag when I'm typing the text, it should still be valid and be recognized. Great. So again, stickers are where I think you have the most fun. So going back to the question we saw earlier from Kara, here you can see if you click music, it then lets you search music by popular, moods, or genre. And then you see it'll add this sticker for sort of what you're listening to, right? So you just have to go with the choices that are built in here the same way that you would with the tools. But this is where I think you have to get really explorative and kind of go on an adventure, right? Is that as you're creating content for stories, don't just limit it to the photos and the videos. Start to really play around with how, once you've created that photo or video, you can add in different filters or especially different stickers to attract attention and actually get people to take an action, which is actually engage with you. So some of the other more advanced things that you're going to see inside of Instagram stories, one is swipe up links. And I've put some links in here in the slide deck so you can learn more about this. Swipe up links are basically when you have a story and you can add a link to it and it says swipe up. They swipe up and they get to click on that link to go somewhere. Now, you have to have 10,000 followers, or you have to be pretty famous and have a verified account or a brand that's pretty well known. So this is something that you have to aspire to if you have a smaller account, but it is one of the ways that you can make your stories drive more people to a website in some way to convert. There's also stories ads. So now, just the way that you can run Facebook and Instagram ads in the feeds, you can also create ads inside of the stories feature. So this might be something to consider going forward, especially if you're already doing Facebook and Instagram advertising. If you feel like you're not getting as much engagement or you're not getting as many results, you may consider whether or not running ads inside of stories part of the time and splitting part of your budget between the news feed and the stories would be worthwhile. And then if you sell products and you have an online store, there is a whole section of Instagram that is dedicated towards shopping. And so I can really feature my products and their prices and make clickable items if I set up Instagram shopping for my feed. Once I have that going, I can also add what we call shopping tags to my stories. So this is really only important for people that are selling literal products that have prices that people can buy digitally in a lot of ways, but this is going to be very valuable if you're in e-commerce and you want to enhance your engagement there. So I know we've got our program manager, Genna Harris, on the line, and she gave me some great pro tips that I wanted to share with everyone. And I hope Genna doesn't mind, but I stole this photo from her own personal Instagram just to show that, you know, you can be pretty creative just as an individual and come up with some really beautiful things. So I really, I encourage everybody, like I said, to have fun with this, to take photos of things that you're really passionate about, that you love, spend some time coming up with video content and fun stuff that you think your customers or your clients or your donors are going to feel really excited about. Because again, this sort of gives us all the opportunity to step up our sort of visual and graphics game. So Genna's 3 top tips. Keep your text on stories as simple as possible, especially when it comes to static images. You don't want to overwhelm the person with too much text. So I agree with this, although I know some people go crazy and they put a lot of text and 5 stickers and whatever they can fit on there. I feel like as brands, we just want to remember we're trying to engage our customers, our supporters. We want to make sure that they understand the point of what we're saying and that it's not too overwhelming or cluttered for them to get the main point. Second pro tip, when you create a video story, write a very brief 1 or 2 sentence caption of what you're saying in case people don't have the sound turned up or can't listen to the whole narration. So again, if you're going to create more video content, you'll notice there's different places to caption in what the main points are. So you want to take advantage of that whenever you can, so it's just clear to people why they should be paying attention to what you're saying. Because again, hopefully, if they understand why the story content is important, they will watch it knowing that it might disappear soon. So that's why we see stories generates higher engagement than the newsfeed. And then third pro tip, when it comes to reposting other brand or people's stories who mention you or your brand, do it sparingly and don't go overboard. So this was a great thing I was really glad Genna brought up, because I think it's very common once you become familiar with stories to figure out how to repost things where maybe another company or another individual has mentioned your company or organization. But the truth is, as awesome as it is to share those mentions, to me, when you curate content, but you never create original content, you create an imbalance. So in all social media, we want to have a balance between curating and creating original content. So I know this is a lot because Stories has so many things to play with. I want to encourage you, in the beginning, don't try to be perfect. Just enjoy yourself. Click on lots of things. The story doesn't go live until you send it. So if you don't want to send it because you're not comfortable, you can just back out and delete it and you won't post it to your account. So allow yourself some time to adventure and explore. These are just some good examples I put together of stories and what they look like. One thing I really like is as people watch your story, they can respond by messaging your brand or your organization. So a lot of times, if you want people to message you, you can put in text on this, message me now, right? And we'll look at an example of that. But these are just examples you can go through to kind of see the different ways that individuals as well as companies are using stories to show their locations, to show before and afters, to shout out and mention other people. This is a good example of the message me, and even to create sort of more branded looks. So over time, as you get stronger at this, you're able to actually design what we call stories templates. So for a lot of nonprofits, we actually have those. So I have templates that kind of look the same, have the same colors and things like that. It becomes easier for me to repurpose those over time. And then, Rick, I see your question. Is narration only during live recording, or can it be added after the fact? As far as I know, really the narration is going to come up when you're doing live. And I think hands-free, you should be able to speak directly. And if you just did like a regular video, you should be able to, you know, if you, let's say you made like a 30-second video that you wanted to try to repurpose into a story, if it has audio, then you should be able to use that audio when you upload it. But things like Super Zoom does not have narration. Boomerang, there's no narration or sound. And what do you like to use to create those templates? So my go-to, Ashley, is always going to be Canva, just because I think it's easier and faster for a lot of people that are not graphic designers. Of course, I work with a ton of graphic designers, and we create all sorts of templates, and everything from InDesign to Photoshop to Illustrator. All of those systems, especially the Adobe suite, will give you the ability, because the specs are pretty much the same for most stories, to create them. Canva also has those stories kind of templates that you can play with for free. I've also put in a great list of resources. So if you want to learn about stories more and really understand them in a deeper level, you can utilize all of these resources. I've vetted them. I've read through each of them. They've all been updated for 2020. So definitely check these out, and keep in mind, even though you'll learn a lot, things will change pretty quickly. So you want to keep that in mind, that there'll always be new things that are added. And like I said, I know we have to wrap up because we're right at the top of the hour. So I'm so excited all of you made it so we could talk about this. I hope that I will see more and more of you using stories and using stickers. Like I said, if you registered for the webinar, you will get a copy of this recording along with the slide deck. And at the end here, in addition to the personal resources I've shared with you, you also have information about our upcoming online classes. We have a really exciting one about how to use chatbots and Facebook Messenger coming up on April 14th. There's a lot of free resources that you can get from the JB Media Institute to help you do better digital marketing, not just not just social media, but many other types of things, including advertising and SEO. And then, of course, you have my contact information. So don't hesitate to reach out to me at any time with additional questions, or if you need additional resources, I'm glad to assist. But thank you all so much. I really appreciate the positive comments. I see this one question: how often should you post? Shelby, a lot of people want the answer to this. I'll be honest, there's no real answer to this. It's really about your audience. So the great thing about stories is you can actually, there's a high threshold. So unlike the news feed, because they disappear so quickly, there's many brands and individuals that post to stories sometimes 10 times a day, right? So they're creating stories all throughout the day, and it's a primary way that they're engaging with their audience. Now, I would assume if they're doing it that frequently, it's because they're getting great results, right? So people are really engaging with what they're doing. Other companies, I think, are only posting to stories maybe once a day, or maybe even a handful of times a week. I do think, though, that you want to keep in mind, if your audience is younger, then stories might be a better way to reach them than reaching them through the feed, right? And also that if your audience on the other side is maybe older, you might see that they're not watching the stories as frequently. They're spending more time in the feed, but you're getting some new people engaged by basically using the stories to kind of give them another route or another touch point to your brand. So I really think it has to do with how much time and resources do you have to create the content and to get it out there, and then who are your audiences, and are you happy with the engagement you're getting in the feed, or do you want to see it increase in some way? All of those things would become part of how you would decide how frequently that you need to do it. So I know we've got some additional questions. I'm going to stay on here. And Shelby, I went ahead and just talked about that because I saw it in the chat. So hopefully that made sense. Let me know if there's anything else. And then Carissa, what are your thoughts on highlights? Have you used them at different times for events and such to save your stories? So yes, I often have a number of basically a number of kind of plans whenever I do an event, in how we're going to kind of document it inside of the stories. A lot of times I will also, with events, have one person who's kind of dedicated to creating the stories during the course of the event. Now, I know a lot of us aren't doing in-person events right now, but in the past, that's what we would be doing. So especially for events, I would always have a number of different stories, and then either myself or the person who's doing it, I would really try to decide, look, we want to make sure that we highlight 1 to 3 things from this event right now on our profile. If we do that, I need you who's creating the content to really choose kind of what you think is the best stories of the night to highlight. And I do think once your stories are up there, potentially if it's within the first 24 hours, you should be able to go back into the story you created and highlight it after the fact, as well. But I'm really thoughtful that the highlights, I don't want to have too many or people aren't going to see them. So the first like 3 to 5 highlights I have are probably going to get the most attention on my profile. So if I do multiple events over time, I might change out what the highlights are. The first 3 to 5 that are visible, I might be adding to them every week or every few weeks, just to change up what's there. So yeah, so hopefully that makes sense. Great, thanks, Desiree. I'm so glad that was helpful. And yeah, I'm so glad that was helpful, Chris. I really appreciate it. And Lori, so when a story is archived, where exactly does it go? It's, as far as I understand, it's really just going into your account. It's not, like I said, because it's going to, and I'm not even sure everything is archived. So when you create the story, it's funny, I got conflicting reports on whether every story is archived or just some of them. And I don't know if they're all archived, how long they stay there. But like I said, I believe the archives are basically just in your account. You should be able to see them from your settings. A lot of them are there so that you can go back and look at the tracking inside of the insights. So there's a connection between those two things. But if I'm correct, it's just in the settings where you should be able to go and view your archives. And if you can't find that, let me know because I can look it up. My phone's turned off for the webinar right now, so it didn't interrupt us, but feel free to let me know if you can't find it. Okay, great. I see that you went ahead and found that. So yeah, like I said, some people say that everything is archived. Other people say not everything is archived. So that's just something to keep in mind because I feel like I couldn't get a direct answer on that. But again, if there's any other questions, I'm glad to stay for a few extra minutes while you chat in. And otherwise, I really appreciate everyone being here. Thanks so much for such an engaging time and for all the great questions. I really appreciate it. So again, I'll stay on the line for a little bit longer just in case anybody else would like to ask me anything. And I am glad to hang out. But otherwise, have a great rest of your Wednesday. And like I said, hopefully we will see you next month at our next digital drop-in. Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Hannah-Laura. Thanks, Melissa. Yeah, and Jennifer, can I start an IGTV video from the IG app, or do I need the IGTV app? No, I'm pretty sure that you just click a plus button when you want to, when you're in Instagram and you go to where, so like go to Instagram, go to the Explore section where you have that little magnifying glass, and then you should have IGTV as an option at the top and you click on it. And from there, I believe there's a plus sign where if you want to add your video directly from Instagram, you just do it from there. So last time I checked, that's how it worked, and you did not need the IGTV app to go ahead and actually add your video. You could do it from either one of the apps. And then Desiree, yeah, so how do we shift to a business account? So you need to go to the little 3-lined menu that you see when you're on your profile. You need to go into your settings, and then usually when you scroll through your settings, it will say switch to a business account or switch to a personal account. And if you want to change over to a business account, you should be able to do it right there inside of your settings. And thanks so much for being here, Sanford. And then Laura, I see your question. No, you cannot post to Instagram on your computer. I don't think you ever will be able to. Essentially, when you want to go to Instagram.com on a computer or laptop, what you're going to do is essentially be able to edit your profile a little bit, like your link, your description, your photo, and sometimes you can comment and heart things in your feed, but that's it. If you want to post from a computer, you need to get something like Schedugram or Later or Hootsuite or Sprout Social so that you can schedule your Instagram posts on your computer or your laptop. So yeah, Instagram is typically, most of their tools are only available in the mobile app, and that's pretty much how they've always been. So I'm not sure that we'll ever see the desktop or laptop version of Instagram.com build in many new features. I am a big fan of both Later and Schedugram, just so you know, because I like to create a lot of my graphics on my computer I'm older now, I'm in my 40s. It's harder for me to look at these tiny devices. So a lot of times I'm going to use Canva to create a lot of my Instagram content, and then I'm going to use Later to schedule a lot of it out. Although to schedule things like stories and have more control over those types of features, you do need to pay for the upgrades. So on Later and Schedulegram and Hootsuite, they do, you have to use the paid versions if you want to have the full suite of tools. But if you just want to schedule things to your feed, that you can actually do for free on Later. Thanks, Anam. All right, so if that's all the questions for today, again, I really appreciate everyone being here. I hope you have a great Wednesday, and hopefully, like I said, I will see you again next month for our next Digital Drop-In free webinar.